friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chesswise. Today we are going to look at a very interesting game. Let's get started. The game which we are doing now is called the game of forks. Okay, why game of forks? We will see as early as move 3 or 4. Both players try to attack each other's pieces and double attack begins to happen. Okay, let's get started with the opening. E4, E5. Knight F3, the most obvious move. Development with attack, develop knight before bishop, develop kingside first. All these three rules are followed by this. It also forces black to defend the pawn. Okay, so black played NC6. One of the best moves here. Two other moves which are possible are D6 and NF6. Okay, white played the most natural move, BC4. Some other moves are also possible like D4, NC3 and bishop to B5. Okay, now what we see here, normally black develops bishop c5 or nf6. Okay, so this game we can say it's like an exceptional game where black is violating some principles but still gets better if white is not responding properly. Okay, so black plays the move knight d4. See, first he is violating the principle that he is moving the same piece again. So what opening principles say that we develop the pieces. Okay, then as for first knight, then bishop, then other knight, then other bishop, then we try to castle. Okay, and then we see whether to move the queen or take the pieces ahead. Here what black has done, he has just developed the knight and immediately he is playing it again. So he is moving the same piece again, which is not a good thing. Now what white notices here, that he is getting the pawn on e5. So this is what we can say an opening trap. Okay, so at the end I will tell you what is white's correct move also. So now what white did, white thought that he is getting the pawn, and in what better way? He attacks f7 with bishop and knight both. Okay, so it looks like this is a very good way of playing. Okay, he gets the center pawn there too. Okay, now what happens in this game, we will see that many principles are violated by black, but still he is on the top of the game. Okay, let's see now what happens. First double attack of the, black starts with the first double attack of the game. See, the queen attacks the knight, the queen attacks the g2 pawn. So what we noted here, see, as early as move 4, black has started attacking and violating another principle, that he is developing the queen early. Okay, so what we see, both have moved the knight twice and black has got his queen early. Now the problem is, white's kingside is bit loose, no one protects g2, the knight on e5 is hanging. So first problem, if bishop takes the pawn with check, then king can be played to e7, keeping the knight and bishop both attacked. Okay, and we see that one of the piece will be lost over here. So any move like d3 would allow just queen to take the knight. Okay, so there will be problem. So what white did in the game, he thought he is getting knight into f7. Okay, he takes the pawn with the knight, creating another knight fork. See, knight attacks the rook, knight attacks the queen. Next fork. Okay, now black's queen is attacked, so black played queen into pawn. See, yet another fork. Queen attacks the rook, queen attacks the pawn on e4. Now there are two variations. The game can continue in two ways. In the main game, white played the rook to f1. White can play nh8 also. We will look at nh8 first. White played, if white plays knight into h8. Now see, there are two options. Queen can take the rook, queen can take the pawn with check. So black first takes the rook, queen into rook check. Now see, king cannot move up to e2 because of the knight. So bishop comes back to f1. Then queen e4 check. Now if the queen is brought, that is actually almost forced, then knight takes the queen. So white plays the bishop to e2. Now see, queen h1 check, bishop f1 will just repeat the position. So what black sees, that his knight and the queen both attack the c2 square. So comes knight c2 check. Now this was white's last chance. So white had to play queen into knight and give up his queen and play on. But if white plays king f1, then queen h1 is checkmate. Okay, now let's go back to the main game where white played rook f1 and see. So now we are back to the position after qg2 here. So just now we saw knight h8. Now white played rook f1 in the main game. This rook f1 was even worse actually. So queen takes the pawn with a check. Now actually it's forced to play queen e2 and give up the queen. So after queen e2 we can just take knight into e2, bishop e2 and then king into f7. The position will be totally winning for black. But in the game white played the bishop to e2 and after bishop to e2 it looks like knight c2 check and we can win the queen into c2. But black has a very strong move. See, the king is surrounded by its own pieces and the knight comes to f3 and gives check. Note that this bishop cannot capture the knight because it is pinned. So such a mate where king is surrounded by its own pieces and a knight check happens. Okay, so it's called a smothered mate. We'll be doing a separate chapter on smothered mate later on. Now let's see what is the right way for white to play when he faces the move nd4. Okay. So now we are at the main position where black played the move knight d4. So what we see here, black has moved the same piece again and now capturing the pawn is giving nothing to white. In fact, white is coming under pressure. So as per the rule, if we go back to the first rule, we know that the first rule is center control. And whenever these exchanges are happening, we have one more very important rule. Whenever any exchanges happen and we see that a piece has moved how many number of times. So we see this knight on d4 has already moved, see, once and twice. Suppose this knight gets exchanged for this one. So whatever moves these both knights have made, and if both are traded, so those many moves will be lost for both. So for example, if knight takes the knight here, okay, and after pawn takes knight, we see white has not really, black has not really lost many tempos because knight has moved twice. White knight also moved twice and exchange has taken place. But what white gets benefit here? The move will be white. So this is one good option. Here white can play the queen to f3. White can play center control, move c3. And if black takes, the knight comes out. So white will have lot of development. This is one possibility. But there is an even better option. What is the option? See, as I told you, we want the opponent to move the knight more number of times. So white plays the move c3 immediately. See, now the e5 pawn is attacked, knight is attacked. So knight into knight check. So what white did basically forced black to move the knight. See, 1, 2 and 3 and traded for the knight which has moved once. So what has happened? 3 moves versus 1 move and they got traded. So we will see 2 extra moves for white in the position. See, white has 2 extra developments as compared to black. So this is a very important point. When we exchange pieces in the opening, this we have to keep in mind. Now let's say black can play the move nf6, most normal developing move. Note that there was a mating threat on f7. Okay. So after knight f6, white has a very strong move d4. See, white is getting a very strong center control. And now after the move ed, either he can castle, play bishop g5 or e5 looks very strong. After e5, if the knight moves, there is a mate and black will be compelled to play some move like queen e7 and trying to pin the pawn, to which white has cd4 very strong or castle very strong. Castle, queen e5, cd4, qd4. This will be a very difficult position for already we can say for black. Now very strong move. qb3 will put immense pressure on the f7 pawn and there are not many good ways to protect it. So this can be one good option. Okay, or else white can, if white finds it very risky to give up these pawns, then white can just play the move cd4 here, take the pawn cd4 here instead of castle, and this position is also very good. After queen b4 check, white can just play nd2 and we can see that white has lot of development. So if anyone is trying to set this trap by nd4 move, so white can play this way. We should avoid the trap. We should not go into the game of forks if we are white. I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.